Good evening, it's Monday, the 24th of February, and here's what's making news around the world on World News Tonight. Pope's health. Pope Francis's critical condition with kidney failure remains alert and attends Mass. France attack. Algerian national arrested after deadly stabbing. Macron calls it Islamist attack. Hollywood spotlight. SAG Awards winners reveal offering key Oscar preview.
This is World News Tonight with Aquil Qureshi.
Good evening once again. Pope Francis remains in critical condition. The blood test showed early kidney failure, but he remains alert, responsive, and attends Mass as the 88-year-old pontiff battles pneumonia and complex lung infection.
Tonight, Pope Francis remains in critical condition at Rome's Gemelli Hospital. Vatican officials say he is still getting supplemental oxygen to help him breathe as he fights double pneumonia. And there has been no new respiratory crisis since last night. However, the 88-year-old did have some mild kidney failure, which the Vatican says is under control. The global Catholic Church united in prayer for Francis, from Nairobi, Kenya, to New York, to St. John Lateran, Rome's cathedral. In his hometown of Buenos Aires, where Francis was cardinal, his face emblazoned on the obelisk in the city center. Instead of delivering the traditional Sunday prayer at the Vatican today, Francis sent this message. I am confidently continuing my hospitalization at the Gemelli Hospital, carrying on with the necessary treatment, and rest is also part of the therapy.
Friedrich Merz's Conservatives have won Germany's election, well ahead of rivals parties, but short of a 30% vote shared they had expected.
Voters headed to polling stations across Germany on Sunday for an election that's set to restore power to the Conservatives, while the far right is forecast to achieve its best result yet in Europe's largest but struggling economy. Friedrich Merz's Conservative CDU-CSU bloc has been leading the polls. Merz voted in the western town of Arnsberg in the morning. Asked by reporters how election day would go, he replied, "It will go well." However, Merz's bloc is unlikely to win a majority given Germany's fragmented political landscape. And coalition talks are set to be tough, with parties divided over issues like migration and how to deal with the far-right party Alternative for Germany, or AfD. This could leave unpopular Chancellor Olaf Scholz in a caretaker role for months. Scholz cast his vote in the eastern town of Potsdam. His centre-left SPD is set for its worst result since World War II. A caretaker government would delay urgently needed policies to revive the economy. It would also create a leadership vacuum in the heart of Europe as it faces a host of challenges, including from US President Donald Trump. Trump has made moves to cut a ceasefire deal between Russia and Ukraine without Europe's involvement and threatened a trade war. Polls show Germans are now feeling the most pessimistic about their living standards since the 2008 financial crisis. Public attitudes towards migration have hardened from the country's previous refugees welcome culture. The anti-migrant AfD is on track to take second place for the first time in a national election. That's despite the stigma linked to the far right due to the country's Nazi past, which has triggered protests from many Germans. The AfD is unlikely to govern for now, as all mainstream parties have ruled out working with it. But some analysts believe its election gains could pave the way for an AfD win in 2029.
Heading over to the US now. In a dramatic shakeup of the US military, President Donald Trump just fired General Charles C.Q. Brown, the highest-ranking officer in the country. This move is part of the broader reorganization that sees top officers, including the first woman to lead the Navy, Admiral Lisa Franchetti, out the door.
Trump said in a post on Truth Social that he would nominate former Lieutenant General Dan Raisin Kane to succeed Brown. It's the first time someone has been pulled out of retirement to become the top military officer. Brown, the second black officer to become the president's top uniformed military advisor, was serving a 4-year term meant to end in September 2027.
Military leaders.
A US official said Brown was relieved with immediate effect before the Senate confirms his successor. Democratic lawmakers have condemned Republican Trump's decision to remove the US general. The Pentagon says the president will also replace the head of the US Navy, Admiral Lisa Franchetti, as well as the Air Force Vice Chief of Staff. He is also removing the Judge Advocates General for the Army, Navy and Air Force. It's unclear whom the Trump administration will pick to fill those positions.
Your country first.
Trump's decision sets off a period of upheaval at the Pentagon, which was already bracing for mass firings of civilian staff. The uniformed members of the US Armed Forces are meant to be apolitical, carrying out the policies of Democratic and Republican administrations.
Federal workers received a surprising directive, an email instructing them to list 5 accomplishments from the past week, with a warning from Elon Musk that failure to respond could cost them their jobs.
In a post on X, Musk said federal employees, quote, will shortly receive an email requesting to understand what they got done last week. Failure to respond will be taken as a resignation. It is unclear what legal basis Musk has to terminate federal workers if they fail to respond to his request. His threat was made just hours after Trump posted on his own Truth Social site that Musk, as head of the Department of Government Efficiency, or DOGE, should be aggressive in downsizing the federal workforce. Meanwhile, the U.S. Food and Drug Administration is asking some of its recently fired scientists if they will come back to their jobs, including some employees reviewing Musk's brain implant company, Neuralink. That's according to multiple sources familiar with the matter. At least 11 employees working at the FDA's Center for Devices and Radiological Health, which oversees medical device reviews, have received calls since Friday saying they could return to work on Monday, according to FDA sources. The FDA had initially rejected Neuralink's request to start clinical trials, citing safety risks, Reuters reported in 2023. The agency has since given the startup approval to do clinical trials, which are ongoing. The FDA plans to rehire around 300 people in total, according to sources. Reuters could not verify the figure. The FDA did not immediately respond to a comment request. The White House declined to comment and referred questions to the Federal Health Department, which did not respond.
Let's take a short commercial break. More world news on the other side. Welcome back. Japan and the Philippines agreed today further deepen their defense collaboration and talk about protecting shared military information in the face of the mutual alarm over China's increasingly aggressive actions in the region.
The defense ministers of the Philippines and Japan have agreed to enhance security cooperations amid an increasing complex regional and global environment. Speaking at a joint press conference in Manila following their meeting, Philippine Secretary of National Defense Gilberto Teodoro said they discussed the shared values of a rule-based international order. He stressed the need for a strong partnership between the two nations to prevent unilateral efforts to change the existing global framework. His Japanese counterpart, General Nakatani, said the growing complexities of regional security challenges require stronger defense cooperation. He noted that the two countries have agreed to initiate negotiations on a security information protection agreement to facilitate intelligence sharing. Additionally, they will establish a strategic dialogue between the Japan Self-Defense Forces and the Philippine military, as well as a high-level framework to advance cooperation in defense equipment and technology. Over the past 2 years, the two countries have steadily strengthened security ties. Last year, the two nations signed a key military agreement allowing the deployment of forces on each other's territory.
Indonesia is making a major economic move as President Prabowo Subianto announced the launch of the country's new sovereign wealth fund.
Indonesia launched a new sovereign wealth fund that will aim to manage state assets worth more than $900 billion as President Prabowo Subianto looks to turbocharge growth in Southeast Asia's biggest economy. The recently inaugurated leader has pledged to take the archipelago's annual growth from 5% to 8%, ordering billions of dollars worth of cuts across government that last week sparked the first protests of his rule. Mr. Prabowo signed a document at the presidential palace in Jakarta initiating the new fund known as Danantara, which is modelled after Singapore's investment arm Temasek, and received approval this month in a parliament dominated by the president's ruling coalition. Danantara will take control of government holdings in state companies with an initial budget of $20 billion. Investment Minister Rosan Loslani has been picked as the chief executive of the fund. The government has not specified which state-owned companies will fall under the control of the fund, but President Prabowo has said he wants it to manage more than $900 billion in assets.
A 37-year-old Algerian national has been arrested in Mulhouse, France, after a deadly knife attack that left an elderly Portuguese man dead and 5 police officers injured.
This is the moment a knife attacker was arrested in Mulhouse in eastern France. He was apprehended after killing an elderly Portuguese man and injuring local police officers on Saturday afternoon. The attack took place near the city's Canal Market. Close by, people were attending a march in support of the Democratic Republic of Congo. The attacker shouted Allahu Akbar during the stabbings. The assailant was a 37-year-old Algerian national subject to an obligation to leave the French territory. France's Minister of the Interior arrived in Mulhouse on Saturday evening. While he drew a link between migration and terrorism, he also said the attacker had a schizophrenic profile which added a psychiatric dimension to his brutal stabbing. According to the minister, Algeria refused to take the citizen back 10 times after previous extradition efforts. Franco-Algerian diplomatic relations have been rocked by multiple geopolitical rows, including recent disputes over the deportation of other Algerian citizens. Saturday's murder in Mulhouse may add further friction between the two countries.
Hamas released 6 Israel hostages from Gaza, delivering the last living captives set to be freed in the first phase of the fragile ceasefire.
Hamas freed 6 hostages from Gaza on Saturday in exchange for hundreds of Palestinian prisoners and detainees. Tal Shoham and Avera Mengistu were released first in southern Gaza's Rafah, followed by Elia Cohen, Omer Shem Tov and Omer Venkert, all seized from the site of the Nova Music Festival in Hamas's October 7, 2023 attack on southern Israel. They were handed over to the Red Cross in Nusayrat to be transported to Israeli forces. Dozens of militants stood guard in a crowd that had gathered to watch the handover as armed and masked Hamas men stood either side of the 3 captives. Hamas later handed over a 6th hostage in Gaza City, Hisham al-Sayed, with no public ceremony. Shoham was abducted from Kibbutz Be'eri along with his wife and 2 children, who were freed in a brief truce in November 2023. The 6 are the last living hostages from a group of 33 due to be freed in the first stage of the ceasefire deal between Israel and Hamas that took effect on January 19th. Hundreds of Israelis gathered in what has become known as Hostages Square in Tel Aviv. Some lit candles under photos of the Bibas family, whose bodies were returned this week. Directed hostage releases have included public ceremonies in which captives are taken on stage and some made to speak. They have faced criticism, with the United Nations denouncing what it calls the parading of hostages. Hamas rejected the criticism Saturday, describing the ceremonies as a solemn show of Palestinian unity. In return for the hostages, Israel is expected to release over 600 Palestinian prisoners and detainees held in its jails. They will include 445 Gazans rounded up by Israeli forces during the war, as well as dozens of convicts serving lengthy or life terms. Around 60 more Israeli captives, less than half of whom are believed to be alive, remain in Gaza.
New Zealand's Foreign Minister Winston Peters will touch down in Beijing tomorrow for the 3-day visit in relation between the two countries are strained after Chinese Navy vessels conducted live firing exercises in the Tasman Sea.
New Zealand and Australian officials said that China had conducted live fire exercises in international waters between the two nations, giving little notice and forcing commercial airlines to divert flights. The three ships are currently around 280 nautical miles east of Tasmania, outside of Australia's exclusive economic zone. New Zealand Prime Minister Christopher Luxon said the limited notice that China had given that it would undertake live firing exercises would be raised in Beijing. Peter's visit to China is a part of a trip that includes stops in the UAE and Saudi Arabia, Mongolia and South Korea. In Beijing, he will hold talks with senior Chinese leaders, including Foreign Minister Wang Yi. Peter said last week in a statement he would discuss with Chinese officials the bilateral relationship as well as Pacific, regional and global issues that are of interest to both countries. Peters has also voiced concerns that the Cook Islands, an independent country in free association with New Zealand, had signed a comprehensive strategic partnership and other agreements with China without consulting with New Zealand.
Let's take a short commercial break. More world news on the other side. Welcome back. Dramatic new video captures the moment a father and his 12-year-old son were rescued from a steep cliffside in Snow Canyon, Utah. The pair survived using supplies left behind by another hiker who had been previously stranded in the same location.
Those white figures there, look closely. That's infrared video of the pair waving at a helicopter search team desperate for help.
We've located them.
The two lost for hours, hiking in Snow Canyon State Park. The man's wife alerting authorities.
They're just down below.
With temperatures near freezing and their cell phone dead.
They've got space blankets there.
They survived in part because in that same spot, incredibly, they found a backpack with blankets, food and water, left behind by 15-year-old Levi Dittman, stranded in that same location just weeks ago. As for the rescued pair, the dad tells us he's grateful and certain that in the future, no matter how long the hike, he will always be prepared for the worst.
An emotional reunion in Arizona as a woman met the first responders who saved her from a burning vehicle. Grateful for their quick action, she says she wouldn't be here today without them.
One Arizona police officer in the right place at the right time. Officer Brian Larison on his way to work when he witnessed this cement mixer slamming into a pickup truck where Amy Ruiz, a mother of three, was sent spinning into traffic as smoke began to pour throughout her mangled vehicle. Officer Larison rolling up on the fiery crash barely 30 seconds later.
911 emergency.
Hi, there was just an accident on the 60.
I'm not going to let her burn up.
Ruiz, who had been trying to escape through her window, was thrown back inside as the truck flipped right side up, her own hair even catching fire.
Get her out of there! I looked out a corner of my eye and there's this off-duty fireman and he's got all his fire retardant gear on. And I'm like, what? Get her out. Anybody else in there?
Firefighter Asa Pagua, also on his way to work, arriving just in time.
We got you. We got you.
Despite having never met, the first responders understood the assignment and worked in sync, pulling off the high-stakes rescue as if they were longtime partners.
You good, man? Yeah, we're good. We're good. I'm glad you're here, brother. Bro, I was just going to walk right here. Right here.
Those three words, I got you, echoing in Ruiz's mind since Tuesday. And again, as she reunited with both Larison and Pagua, holding on to them tight once again.
We got you.
Getting the chance to thank them one more time for saving her life.
I thought my life was over.
And keeping her family whole.
There's no way I'm ever going to be repaying it, of course, but...
This is repayment enough. Yeah, this is it. Plenty.
Two bald eagles, Jackie and Shadow, have captured the hearts of viewers worldwide, gaining a massive social media following from their home in California.
High atop a pine tree in the San Bernardino National Forest, about 100 miles outside Los Angeles. Jackie and Shadow, a bald eagle pair since 2018, tend to their nest and wait. Sandy Steers, who helps run the conservation group Friends of Big Bear Valley, has been observing this nest for years. The social media stars put on quite a show as 2 solar-powered live webcams capture their every move. The couple is expecting triplets. It's a rarity for bald eagles. Steer says they compete over who gets to sit on the eggs. Last year, a global audience watched as Jackie, buried under a foot of snow, sat 62 hours straight on 3 eggs. None of those eggs hatched, but Jackie is mom to 5 eagles who flew the nest. Nationwide, the bald eagle is making a remarkable comeback. Once on the brink of extinction, its population has soared, quadrupling to about 316,000 the past decade. Jackie and Shadow's eaglets are due to Pip as early as March 1st. For now, their fans can only watch and wait, hoping the majestic birds will have some new additions to their nest.
The Screen Actors Guild Awards SAG winners have been announced, offering a key glimpse into the Oscars race with just 1 week to go.
Vatican succession drama Conclave took home top film prize at the SAG Awards Sunday. It's a sign the movie's picking up steam ahead of next week's Academy Awards. Star Ralph Fiennes accepted the award for the cast while celebrating community in film as in life. Meanwhile, Timothée Chalamet scored Best Actor for his portrayal of a young Bob Dylan in biopic A Complete Unknown. And Demi Moore took home Best Actress for her starring role in body horror The Substance. Top TV honors went to samurai historical drama Shogun, while Selena Gomez accepted the top comedy award for the cast of Only Murders in the Building.
Wait, we never win. This is so weird. Okay, well, Marty and Steve aren't here because, they don't really care.
Members of the SAG-AFTRA Actors Union picked the SAG winners, and actors formed the largest voting body for the Oscars, adding to Conclave's chances after it took home top prize at the UK's BAFTAs last week. But the field for top movie this year is murky, as a string of other recent Hollywood awards have gone to Anora, a drama about a sex worker who marries the son of a Russian oligarch.
Well, that's a wrap right here on World News Tonight. Up next, Sanvi Mudan-Naika is standing by with Nightly Business Report. Well, until then, of course, I'm Akwel Qureshi, and we've got quite a lot of things to show you as visuals of the designer Bora Akusu London Catwalk show that is actually mixing beauty and sorrow. Take a look. But thank you so much for watching. Good night.